in. Very formal, very serious gear.
Yeah, that's how we'll know you're not there looking for anyone. That's how we know you're just there for a nice time. You're not, trying to, bag anyone.
You know what? I don't gotta look for anyone because you're always looking for me. Stingers hurt. It stings.
You'll be sting.
It is exactly 31 minutes after 10 a.m. This is Beyond the Ground, the voice, Sound Your Voices come to life. We did say we're going to be joined by a young thinker, a young progressor, I think I would say. Somebody that I think via even the first conversation truly caught our attention in two different ways, I would say. Twenga Peter is his name. We thought, last time we had him on the show, we were, of course, discussing the president's letter. Of course, we were discussing very serious affairs. And I think it's important that we actually get to know him, know the man himself. We know he has a book, to see exactly the importance of not only the book, but the things that are discussed in the book. But as well, man, I think conversations about the importance of young leaders, young people that truly progress and, motivate and push the envelope, I would say. Twenga, how are you this morning?
Good day. I'm doing good today. How are you guys doing?
We are very, very glad that you're with us today, man. We really love how serious you look. I think we need more young people like ourselves dressed formal.
Yeah,
I think it's very important.
I do agree.
Yes.
It helps you set the atmosphere also.
Okay.
But man, we have a tradition on the show. We would like to ask our guests, what is it that grounds them when things get hectic in your life? When the economy becomes a lot to calculate and analyze, what is that one thing that brings you back to yourself?
Running.
Ooh.
Running from your problems or just running on the road?
Running towards them.
Okay.
What an answer!
Running towards them. Sometimes when I feel overwhelmed, whether it's life, whether it's how I perceive things in my life, or whatever the case may be, I've found running as a sense of healing, and I've come to an understanding that we can never run away from what is going to happen. Some things are just bound to happen. So the only thing you can just do as an individual is to just run. Understand that this problem is coming. Even if you run away from it, it's going to chase you. So the only way you can get through this, you have to go through the storm. I think buffaloes do the same thing. So when they see a storm,
the
buffaloes,
ones that belong to our president.
not those ones. But buffaloes, when they see a storm come, they don't run away from the storm, but they run towards it because they understand that the sooner they go over the storm, the quicker they will get through the problem. So I have the same mindset. Whatever that comes in my life, I run through it. I take it on so I can get past it as soon as possible to focus on more things to come.
So next time I have any stress in my life, I just need to run towards that stress.
Run.
Does he wear a suit when he does that?
That was my next question.
It depends if you're going to be comfortable wearing a suit. If you feel comfortable with the suit, then run with the suit. It's going to help you to be more formal with it.
You think I should run towards my ex-baby Sue?
That's a problem. So yeah, quite frankly, you should.
But let's get into it, Gwenga. Well done on your book.
Thank you so much.
Of course. What made you write that book, and why now? Because I think very often people tend to underestimate the importance of the relevance of the subject matter in the book to the time. So could you talk us through that? What made you write the book, or what's the book about? And also, why do you think the book matters now?
Sure. I remember I was in grade 11, right? First time encountering economics. So I was coming from Dale College to BCM Institute High School. So in this economics class, I would hear my teacher talk about economic growth and economic development. That's one thing that captured me big time, and I had to go home and do some research on it. And I found out that this lie we sold in our textbooks that we need economic growth to get development is a facade and a lie. And it has led to me in grade 12 challenging my teacher in class and be like, no, man, certain concepts in economics are quite wrong. There's a lot that is a cost here than we even say. There's a lot of fragilities that are in the system. And my teacher would say, no, Gwenga, if you want to pass, just focus on this. Do not answer anything else. And I remember in essays, one thing that almost made me fail, I used to debate in essays. So I'll be given a question for my essay question in economics, asking, let's say, why do we need economic growth to get economic development? I would challenge that and say, we don't need economic growth to get development. We need development to get growth, and play along that. So I almost failed. No, I didn't fail. I almost did fail because of that, but I lost a lot of marks because I was not answering the question itself. So because of that, I felt like I was so holed up in a cage from high school. So that led to me after high school to take a gap year and start writing a book. I remember writing this book. I was so overwhelmed, and I would put goals and targets for myself, and I would never hit them. I tell myself I'm gonna write, like, let's say, a chapter this week, and I would fail. It took me about 8 months to write the whole book, but it's totally research based. I listened to people like Thomas Sowell, Thomas Piketty, Joseph Stiglitz, and more, and I took their ideas. And what caught my attention to what they wrote was that, especially when they talk about Africa, they look into the African problems in the transformation plan, but they all miss the transition. They all don't understand the underlying fragilities with the system, which that was what led to the first chapter of the book being the illusion of stability, and shows how policies shape perception. And the goal with the whole book was to show the human cost of economic decisions, and show that how decisions that may look they may look sound on the surface, that how do they have underlying fragilities that continue to persist over time and get to affect people as a whole, whether you're rich, whether you're poor. These systems affect everyone. We get promises like the promise we just got from the president just yesterday, where we get to see, but these promises over time, they don't fulfill their purpose that were there, because they only focus on transformation, and there was no proper transition plan. And because of that, it leads to the people being the human cost of economic decisions. So that's what led to me writing the book. I was a young guy lost in the world, but I knew one thing, that I loved economics to the point where I wanted to challenge economic concepts themselves. And because of that, that led to me writing my first book.
I like that idea, and I think there's something you said about how there are things we aren't taught at school, and mainstream media or mainstream books, lie to us, and you're telling people to basically doubt mainstream books. But how do we know that we can trust your book? How do we know you're not just selling us ideas? And I mean, it's ideas that come from listening to people. Every economic book that's out there that's been written has been inspired by whether you've studied it or you've listened to people. But how are we to trust your ideas, or at least people?
Because I'm the same as them. I am where they are. I feel the same way about the system. We are all in the cage, right? There's this other teacher of mine, Miss PT. She once told me that we think of the matrix as something of just a box, whereas once you escape one box, you just go into another one. And it's just a cycle of going into boxes, and you have to continue to learn these systems. That's why they say, education never ends. You die with education, you have to die learning. And the reason people should look into the book is, one, I'm not doing it for profit. Most people who write books, they write books so that they can make money out of the book. I don't need money from the book. The reason I wrote the book was to raise social awareness of the system, so that people can make better decisions and be able to navigate themselves through the system itself. That's why you get to see in my website, I made the book completely for free for anyone who wants to get the book. And then for those who prefer hard copies, then those are the ones for sure who would have to pay to get that. But I made it free for everyone because it was not a matter of making money out of it, but to raise social awareness. And I was very young when I wrote the book. I saw the system in many ways, and I would see the loopholes, and I would see even the people in my community, my village, how they live their lives. And I would see, all these things are just ripple effects of the system itself. And because of that, I didn't love, and I was not comfortable with it. And I understand that South Africa has a lot of potential. South Africa has a lot of potential, especially my peers, to become anything they want to be. But the system stops them from becoming and fulfilling their purpose.
I want to speak about that. You also said just now that, there's human cost to economic decisions. Could we speak more about that? What are these economic decisions? Also, what is the human cost that we are seeing from it? How do we know that what we are seeing is a result of poor economic planning from those in power? But also, what should they do differently? What should they do better? What is the conversations or is the addresses they should be making that aren't like the ones that you don't agree with right now?
You see, I remember when I was starting to write my book, the one thing that led me through it was to understand the nature of problems. I feel like the leaders who lead us today don't understand problems. I think they perceive problems as just a one-time event or just a pattern, but I believe it's beyond that. It's systematic. Every problem is systematic. Every problem has 5 compounding systems that ensure the problem stays the problem. It is incentives, it is rules, it is behavior, feedback loops, and power structures.
Say that again real quick. I want to get all 5.
Sure.
Oh.
So the 5 components that ensure that the problem continues to persist. It is incentives, it is rules, it is behavior, it is feedback loops, and power structures. All those 5 systems play a huge role when it comes to problems. And even if the leaders that we have, they fix one aspect of the problem, they still don't understand, but it's something beyond even those 5 components, which is the interaction of systems around the problem itself, which is political systems, economic systems, technological systems, legal systems, environmental systems that are interacting with every problem that there is. So what I realized is the leaders we have, when they try to bring solutions, they look into the problem at hand and they see it as just a pattern or just as an event, but they don't understand that there's a system behind it. And just fixing one attribute of it, it just delays the consequences from coming, but does not fix the entirety of the problem. It just creates a surface around the problem while the underlying fragilities continue to rot, continue to get stronger, and then when they pop out again, they still try to bring the same solutions because they perceive the problem, they perceive the problem as something they've solved before, so they still bring the same solutions. I don't blame them. It's part of their human nature, but it is a problem because problems are not just a one-time event. They're not just a pattern. They are systematic from the get-go. And that's one thing that I caught from the get-go. And I saw, Bana, if ever we can understand problems and the nature of it, the same way we see solutions and success, that there are frameworks to follow, problems also has frameworks that we should look into. There are systems when it comes to problems. Just the concept of problem itself has its own systems, has its own mechanisms, and interacting systems around it. And if we want to fix and bring real reform, it's not a matter of fixing it with trying to go fast with it. It requires time. You can never fix an economy in a space of 4 years. You need about 10 years minimum to be able to fix an economy, because once we say we are going to fix it in 4 years, we're gonna try to get things that would delay the consequences from coming, but we're just continuing in the feedback loop of problems over and over again.
Wouldn't you say that fixing is not fixing the economy? You listen to the Minister of Finance, or the MEC of Finance was delivering the budget speech for the Eastern Cape. It's setting up structures and systems that will help, fasten the work of fixing the economy in the next 10 years, because you do need systems in place now that will lay the foundation to whatever it is that you're trying to achieve in 10 years. But that's just a side note. The question I have is more about your views, and maybe the change in your views, or even the growth of your views between the time you wrote the book and now. Because what I'm finding in politics, when you look at our leaders, is that as activists, they were incredibly amazing. So they would tell you what the problem is from outside the ring until they get into a ring. There's no, it's not by coincidence that our president is the president now. This is the man who was there when the Constitution was being drafted. This was the man who was there when they were trying to, set up economic policies. And he was amazing as, an activist and as someone who was speaking from outside the ring. And then something switches and changes when you are in government. And I don't know where the disconnect is there, whether or not they fail to, like you said, the transition period, to acknowledge that things have changed. You're no longer outside the ring, and now you're understanding intricacies that you didn't necessarily know when you were outside the ring. So Etwenga Peter, who is speaking right now, not necessarily inside that ring where those decisions are being made. So do you have a change of views? I'm really interested in maybe strong views you held when you started writing the book, and then you discovered, no man, actually it doesn't really work like that, and your views were refined. Or maybe in your own journey where you're like, actually I was wrong for thinking that. Do you ever have those moments?
Yeah, I do have those moments from time to time. And it is what is leading me to start doing my research on the second book I'm going to be writing about, right? Which is going to be about African economic transformation. I've realized that, yes, I was younger then, naive. When I wrote the book, I was 19, but I couldn't publish it.
How old are you now?
I am 22 this year. So I'm still 21 years, but I'm going to be 22 this year.
Wow. Younger than
204.
baby. Younger than baby.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, I'm old. What's wrong with you?
I didn't know people kept on being born after you.
What's wrong?
I
I'm
thought you were
old.
the last born in the world.
I'm old.
So, yeah, when I was 19, for sure, there are some things I didn't understand of the economy that I understand now. I do understand maybe why our leaders are the way they are. I understand that there's a system behind it. And it's like when you're outside, it's easier to advocate, it's easier to talk. But when you get inside, there are again these 5 pressure points that are there, which there are incentives you have to battle with. There are rules you have to battle with. There are behavior changes you have to battle with. There is feedback loops you have to battle with. There's even structural power structures involved in place that you have to battle with. So I understand that, yeah, for leaders, it's hard for them to battle with the system when they're in it compared to when they're outside it.
Not
And
even. Okay. Yeah.
so I've found that to be something that could be the problem also. But my views of economic policies affecting people and act like we have a democratic system, whereas the system we have is all about capitalism. It is a facade and it's a lie, and we should face that lie from the get-go. So I believe that as much as, yes, when I was younger, I didn't understand such things. And while I was writing the book, I didn't understand by the leaders we have don't go through these certain problems and so
Yeah.
on, they're in power. But now I've met a few people who are in those positions and have those conversations with them. And I get to see, but it's actually systematic what they go
Yeah.
through. It's systems that were built even before apartheid was. And these systems just continue to get stronger and stronger. Whereas now, as an individual, if you go in there alone and you have no one to be on your side, or when you don't, not everyone is part of that, it's hard to battle with the system itself. So it's just system mechanisms going against a specific individual, and it just gets to be a overload to them, to the point where the easiest choice is to be corrupt, the easiest choice to do the bad things that they do today. So it's easier to do that and follow what the system wants you to do compared to changing it entirely from within.
I just want to quickly, circle back to the beginning of the conversation. You spoke about economic development and economic growth. That those are concepts that caught your eye. I did economics in high school. Those concepts really caught my eye. I mentioned
Those
them.
EMS.
No, I actually did economics, right? Like,
Yeah, you were talking about the ledger, CPG. I'm like, oh, okay.
I didn't do accounting. I did economics. You see what I'm saying? But I do also mention those concepts quite a bit. But I usually say it to impress people, not that I actually know what they mean. So I want you to first explain what economic development is, what economic growth is, and also why you feel as if the mentality about one bringing the other is actually false, and why it's the other way around.
Let's look into a formula. Input is equivalent to output, right? I would say economic development is input, then economic growth is output. Remember, economic growth is all about numbers. It's about unemployment, it's about GDP, it's about taxes and so on. All those things are just outcomes of what the system has already produced, right? So the system has to function first, produce things, then we're going to be able to determine, okay, are we growing or not? So economic growth is about the outcome, measuring the outcome of the system and the process of the system. But I think development is an input. I feel like development plays a much more role compared to growth, because if ever you don't have a developed nation, you can have growth, but you're still gonna misuse all those resources you have got. You can get higher tax numbers for a specific financial year, but if you still have the same system that is not developed, then you'll just continue spending the money and not developing or changing anything within the nation. So they used to say in school that you have to have growth. Then when you have growth, that's when you're able to invest in economic development. But I disagree. I think countries should focus more on developing themselves first, ensuring that they have the right infrastructure and systems to be able to ensure that they can maintain that growth, and then use that to continuously develop themselves to the point where growth now is not something we are measuring just on outcomes themselves, but it's something that compounds and keeps on growing on a yearly basis.
But is that not an illusion? Also, I think you spoke
I was
about
gonna say
that.
idea.
Well, being an illusion in the beginning, and I personally am someone who believes it's all an illusion. You know, you think of the idea of currency, a currency that is stronger than the other, and when you really try and dig deeper, you realize that actually this doesn't even make sense. Why is it that the US dollar is stronger than the South African rands when we can just decide, you know what? Let's do away with it. And when we do away with it, okay, I'm not saying that should be a thing, because we might, see bombs and all of that. But it's an illusion. You think about the markets will crash, the markets will go out. Where are these markets? Who are these markets? It's people deciding that, oh, okay, this is what we're doing now. This is what is happening now. This is how we are trading now. So isn't it all an illusion, but we just have to pick one that works for us, or one that we are comfortable with? Because you can say that. You can say, focus on economic development first, or focus on economic growth first, and then you do the latter, but it still spikes, because again, there's no formula to it unless you are scientific about all of that. But There'll be a country that says, okay, we'll focus on development first. And you know what? After that development, we will see the growth. You go to your Namibias, you see that, okay, they are focusing on economic development. And, they'll focus on the growth of the economy later. And you'll go to a country that says, okay, let's focus on the growth. Development will follow. So is that not an illusion you have to deal with? Or Kanye, are you saying that in the case of South Africa, this is what we should be doing?
In case of Africa as a whole, that's what we should be doing. But what you're saying is very important. It is an illusion. You're not lying. It is like a game, right? And this game has two sides of it, right? But just like a game, whoever has made the game has a documentation of that game and how you should go about it and so on and so on, right? So yes, it is a game, but unfortunately, if ever you make the wrong decision in this game, the people will pay the price. It will not be the people in power who pay the price. It will be individuals on the ground that are led by these people who are playing this game. So it's like playing chess, right? You may have your pawns, but as the person playing chess, if you use your pawns in the wrong way, you will lose those pawns. The pawns will bear the consequences of those certain actions. So yes, it may be an illusion. Yes, it may be a game, but there is the outcome of what the game is going to give, the outcome of the game will affect individuals who are not even playing the game themselves. And the reason I say look into economic development first and not growth is because we as Africans, we confuse political safety with economic security. But those two terms are two different things, right? Look into South Korea. How they developed. They focused on using whatever resources they had and cheap labor, and then through that they brought out products that they could sell at a higher price to other countries, and that's how they made their money. And they grew until where they are. But as African countries, we thought, Tina, our leaders, like Nelson Mandela and so on, or Sankara and so on, right?
No, Michael, no Nelson Mandela slander will be tolerated, by the way, just saying.
Sure.
She's speaking for her. I'm listening.
They focused on political safety, because at that point, right, they confuse that once you're in a position of government, you can bring change. But they didn't understand about the system of governance and the system of economic security are two different systems, right? And one is much more valuable than the other. And because of that, Africans have always thought that by having a different flag, your anthem, and also being able to have a political seat in government will lead to bringing those change. Whereas economic security is much more important than even political safety. So I think South Korea did that and they won. And they are stronger today because of that. Even United States did that. They focused first on ensuring that their economic systems are strong and they were economically safe. Then that's when they went for political safety.
I want to fight that, because I do think that context is very important. Historical context is very important. You look at our history and the history of many African countries, and you compare them to countries in the north, and you compare them to our counterparts. It's not the same. We don't even start off on the same foot, so the slate isn't the same. We begin the race and the scales are already not balancing. And I think my grapple with all of this is that we are basing off of economic development and all of these other concepts based on concepts that are, I don't want to say they're foreign to us because we've adopted these concepts for so long, but these are concepts that are universal, right? So we are trying to match this universal standard. So even when you speak of development in Africa, you will always have to compare it with almost every other country and not contextualize it to here. So you'll want to compare it to an America, you will want to compare it to a South Korea, because all of these, concepts are universal. When people, this is a conversation I always have with Zan, and Zan is like, political ideology, it's not important. We should care about, services first. And I agree with him to an extent that people will quote Marx's, who's this guy?
Karl Marx.
Karl Marx.
I love that guy.
And it's just like, Karl Marx was a man who lived and existed and believed in a certain thing. It worked for them now, but we have to, at some point, let go of that. Some economic concepts, they existed at some point, but we need to let go of them and contextualize South Africa's problems to South Africa, because even though we exist in the African continent, we don't have the same struggles. We don't have the same, resources. We literally don't have the same context. So shouldn't we be trying to do that? Because even though you're saying we must dismantle our way of thinking about economics, it's still, like you said, a way of thinking that's universal. So you're saying a game, when coded by someone who's created it, the coder will always know how to play the game because they created that. And now you're saying, yes, this is a game, but we must play it, but we must still play it in comparison with the person who coded it.
Can I speak to this? I think it's a conversation that goes into how international trade and geopolitics tend to work. Is that unfortunately, if you contextualize things to Africa alone, there isn't enough here in Africa that's inspiring in terms of an economic standard.
Yeah.
I think that's for sure. So it makes sense for people to see if South Africa is doing well, how does it compare to economies in the world that are doing well? And if you begin to answer that question, the answer isn't usually other fellow African countries. I think that's the reason why they would usually tend to do something like that.
But then can we acknowledge that the context is different? It's really not the same.
But
because
at the end of the day, we're all competing with each other. At the end of the day, we're all trading with each other.
That's
so
what I
that's
appreciate.
what has to matter.
I love
it
that.
Has to matter.
I appreciate that. And that's why I'm saying that argument then is flawed, because we are competing with all of these other global countries, and we're competing with other global stakeholders. So how are we dismantling the system when the global world order has said this is the system and it shall remain the way it is? How are we going to do different when we have to still abide and play by those rules, but we understand that we are not the people who set the rules? We don't sit at that decision making table, but obviously we're there, but I don't think we're there to make those decisions. So how are we going to dismantle it, yet we still have to follow the same world order that they are following?
You see, take it this way.
I'm not defending the government also. Yeah.
Sure, no problem. Right, take it this way. Look into Africa themselves. The reason United States is United States today is because they trade with the USD, right? Which the USD is strong because it has a rich history. And if you look into World War II, how they made most of their funds and they got to the position that in US is so strong now because of their currency. Look into European countries. They all use one currency, right? So the European Union has brought one currency for them to trade using. Now, when you come to Africa, it's a complete different story. We are trading with different currencies. That's why you find it hard for businesses in Africa to trade with one another, or even countries in Africa to trade with one another. Because every time you cross a border, right, the value of of whatever you have at your disposal gets to either increase or decrease, but you get to see that it's always changing. And because of that, it becomes a system that is unpredictable for entrepreneurs and leaders to be able to trade with one another. Now, if ever we were serious about playing the game as Africans, what would you do? Now, if you look into BRICS, we are a puppet. We're being used. Yes, Ramaphosa may give speeches now and then, but it doesn't mean he has power.
What are we being used for?
We're being used for our resources, right?
Okay.
For resources, we have uranium for starters, right? But we don't even have nuclear energy, energizing the economy. So that means most of the uranium, we sell it. Right, we have resources like diamonds and gold and so on.
Money, those people.
Yeah, so they're extracting those resources. China needs those resources to build the products they build. So for them, strategically, it is a good alliance to have South Africa being part of that.
What does it mean for us? Is it not better for us to be in BRICS than for us to be part of the Western world order?
Don't be part of any. What if, hear me out. Let me be crazy just for a second. Let me be crazy for a second. What if Africa can have one currency? Ne? I'm not saying like domestic currencies are not going to work. The rand is going to work inside South Africa for people to trade domestically.
Similar to how Europe is.
But have a currency, African currency, that is going to be backed by all gold reserves in Africa. Africa is one of the only producers in the world that is producing mass gold. So there's no way we can say that the gold in Africa is going to be less compared to what the World Bank has.
Valid, but
right?
Okay.
So we have one currency that is going to be backed by all our gold reserves, right? In Africa, we trade using that currency. Any African country trading outside Africa is going to use that currency to trade with any country outside Africa.
I have so much to say to that. I'm sure so does Baby Sihu. We are a bit pressed for time. We will continue this conversation shortly after the news. Exactly almost 20 seconds to 11 a.m. rather is the time. Beyond the Grey on the Voice Lounge, where voices come to life. Quite the conversation. Make sure you do join. 0839507019. It's the number for all of your text and your voice notes. Also call us in on 043-050-6570. We are the Voice Lounge on Facebook. Go over there, drop a comment, Instagram, TikTok, the whole shebang, and do the whole thing.
Good day, everyone. It's Twela Peter here with exciting news. My first book, The Silent Ledger, subtitled The Human Cost of Economic Decisions, is finally out. This is a 490-page deep dive exposing illusions in our economy, like policy deceptions, inflation as a hidden tax, bailouts, the favoring elites, debt traps, market manipulation, consumerism grips, and more. It covers global and South African issues, urging financial literacy and action for autonomy. Why is this essential for my peers, especially in South Africa? In our unequal society, it empowers you to navigate volatility, build resilience against poverty cycles, and advocate for fair policies. Guys, awareness sparks change. So grab your copy now at www.cwengapeter.info and let's grow together.
Come to life. Zan Chaka is the name, not alone. Baby OBC, who my partner in purpose with me, but also not just us. We also have Cwenga Peter. We are discussing the silent ledger, but we're also discussing the contents within the silent ledger quite clearly, which is also what I think makes it very fascinating. They say the best conversations are those that can, divide opinion, but also engage when it comes to the difference in opinions as well. I believe where the conversation was at is that
Are you wearing suspenders?
no, I'm just
You've
slim
suspended
fit.
the suspenders now.
Yeah, I've suspended the suspenders for now.
Which is
the suspension
insane.
will end and the
Yeah.
suspenders will come back.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I might wear them tomorrow just to prove a point. But yes, we were discussing with you, Cwenga, this idea of Africa having one currency. And before you even get into the further depths of your thought, I was saying off air that personally for me, I think that idea of us sharing a currency and that being the way forward is one that feels very unattainable on a realistic level, because I personally feel as if we all share such a different colonial history. And the reason why it's different is that as much as it is all colonization, different countries had different experiences. We had apartheid, other countries didn't necessarily have apartheid. And I think because of that, their agendas have changed since. So is it not notable to say that for some people out there in other parts of Africa, somebody in South Africa doesn't have the same agenda as somebody in Nigeria, and also the emotions, the feelings the people of the country have towards each other aren't always the most positive feelings. So do you think that maybe before we can decide whether or not we should have our own currency, the conversation needs to first and foremost be, can we unite? Can we all share the same agenda?
I think uniting is possible. It is something that is also attainable, but it requires time and it also requires strategy. Whether we like it or not, right? We all want economic prosperity. Whether you see your country being pink, another one wants their country to be blue, no matter whatever idea they have of their country, we all want economic prosperity, because without that, you cannot get all those things that you have envisioned your country with. So economic security and economic prosperity is one of the most important things for any country in Africa. So choosing one another does not have to be based on emotion, but must be based on strategy, right? If ever you're trading with US and you're trading with, let's say, with your Zim dollar, are you going, whatever outcome you're going to get there, is it better compared to having one currency that is going to be backed by the total gold reserve we have in total in Africa?
Just on that whole conversation of gold reserve, right? And I want to speak to the connection between economics and politics.
Sure.
So we know that for a lot of these minerals Africa does have, they are often Western influences that have interests in these resources. They don't belong to us, right? So what does us taking control, or rather using those gold reserves as the backing, as the base for our currency, what does that look like in terms of those political relations we have, but also that imperialist influence that still exists in Africa? Can those things coexist at the same time?
There's a beautiful term I love in economics, right? And it's mostly seen in microeconomics. It's called opportunity cost. Whatever decision you make, you will lose an opportunity. And in this case, by choosing one another as Africans, we're losing the opportunity to trade immediately with the other guys, which is the Western powers or Eastern powers or whatever the case may be. I think we are going to lose something, whether we like it or not. I think we should try to put ourselves in a position where we can buy these guys out, right? I think that's the most reasonable thing we can do.
Would that not ignite a war? I'm just trying to think. So many of these powerhouses have, interest here. So if we were to unite, would the opportunity cost not be a bit too big?
Why should it ignite a war? Look into the European Union. When they decided to ensure that in Europe they're going to share currency, why didn't that make a war? Why is it going to be different from us? Then that means even the laws and policies that govern us, govern our nations in this case, from the UN and all the other organizations that oversee us, are selective. right? So if ever when Europe decided to build one currency for themselves and ensure when they trade with one another, they trade with that one currency, and with even that one currency, while they use it to trade with one another, they also ensured that they build one another in their continent, even though they are trading with others. Why didn't a war ignite there? So this means this is completely possible, right? So we do have the
Could it
ability.
be that because the war didn't start there because the interest, or what people, the global world order stood to gain was far beyond what a war would cause. So if we are still looking to benefit from South Africa, why would we want to bomb South Africa like that? And if we know that when we do ignite a war, when we decide to bomb South Africa, we won't have much left to extract. Why would we want to do that?
Sure. You see, it is something we have to look into. Take it this way, right? For sure, yes, they will fight it back when it comes to having one currency, right? Especially even when we say one military, that is going to be just even way worse. But it's going to be valuable for them too, right? As much as it's going to be valuable to us, because if ever they are getting these certain like goods now, if ever we develop and increase the quality and the quantity of our resources because we choose one another, that is beneficial for them because they will be extracting more from South Africa or any African country. But whether war is going to come or not come, we must be ready for both. But it's a matter of choosing ourselves, because how long are we going to stay oppressed because we're afraid of war?
Do you know why I love President Cyril Ramaphosa? I think he's a very good diplomat. And, as you're having this conversation, I can't help but think about what strategic positioning of South Africa or even Africa would look like, right? When the president went to the White House, everyone was just like, but this man, Trump walked all over him. And I was also upset. But then as we're having this conversation, I'm reflecting, I'm thinking, no, but that was being diplomatic. I would dare say, or I think that part of us even beginning dismantling the systems that we speak of and positioning Africa as a continent to be reckoned with would be diplomatic. I don't know what the word, but if we would approach it in the diplomatic way, how about we continue, or how about we actually fight? Because I don't know if we are doing that. How about we fight for a seat at the table first? Because like I said, I'm going back to this thing that if the global world order is the benchmark, if these other countries are the benchmark, then who are we? Because we don't sit at the table where people have conversations and decide, right? You have the Security Council, we are not there. We are constantly invited as a member. NATO, we are not there. So our voice doesn't really matter. So even when we think about having Africa unite, I'm not sure if I'm aligned with that one about Africa uniting, by the way, but continue, guys, do your thing. But how about we sit at that table and be an influential voice that actually matters? Because now we can't do it because we are still bound by all of these agreements that white men have when they sit and they think, and they don't think about South Africa as a country to listen to, but as a country to oppress. Because when they are sitting there, they're not talking about, but South Africa. They don't talk about South Africa as a country they care about. That's why when we even speak about the BRICS or even our alliances, people are aligned to us because they have something to get from us. And the minute we say, let us let go of that alliance, we become an enemy of that particular country because China loves us for as long as China is getting something out of South Africa. Right? Russia loves us for as long as Russia is getting something out of South Africa. I am sure that Trump would love South Africa if South Africa would continue to be Uvula's Buke. It's not because these countries care like we do about humanity. It's not like they care like we do, like we even of countries outside South Africa. You have a South Africa that is, advocating for Palestine. You'd ask yourself, why do we care? Right? And America only gets involved when they have something to gain or they have something to lose. Other than that, abasikhathalelanga.
True. And there's something I've once learned from my father. He said to me, if ever you're not invited to the table, make your own table. Make it. We're not gonna if we wanna get a seat, or let me say in the UN, we don't have to be like, hi, please allow us to come in. No. Because we have the resources they need. We forget our power. We have the resources they need. They need us compared to us needing them. They need us even more. So
I just wanna quickly say something, right? It's that I think what we tend to fail to realize as Africans is the power of other things outside of minerals, right? Minerals are incredibly powerful, but there's this one thing called the army. And there's this thing throughout the history of man that always changes the global scale of things, and it's called a war. And I think people don't realize how threatening the threat of war is for all the heads of state. So I think, quite frankly, if Africa were to build their own table, if Africa were to say we are all on one side, we all share the same economic agenda, I genuinely think that would start a war.
Of course, because it would upset the global world order.
The same way they're in Iran right now, because they want minerals. I mean, that's what it's always about.
And remember, when they fight amongst each other, they don't fight the way they fight other countries and they just decide to bomb. There's even a NATO resolution. They first speak, but with us, they wouldn't care to speak to you. You know,
they kidnapped the president of Venezuela. They kidnapped him. It was crazy.
Because he's not his country is not in NATO. His country is not in the Security Council. But they wouldn't do the same thing to Russia. They wouldn't do the same thing to other countries that are in that table. So we can't. Okay, you see, maybe we can.
Take it this
not
way.
Be pessimistic.
If we're going to talk about
not simplistic.
Africa uniting, right? It's not going to be just like we're going to unite and have one currency and then let's say one military. It's not. It doesn't end there. Remember, each and every economy has to build themselves. We have this idea as people that what matters in the economy is what is underneath the ground, but that's a whole facade and a lie. What matters in the economy is what you do above the ground with what you have underneath the ground. That is what makes us more powerful than China, more powerful than US or any other country, because we have the resources and we also have the ability and the land to do things above the ground, but we don't. That's where the problem is.
What about the countries that have nothing underneath the ground, but they are there above the ground, dominating other people's undergrounds?
You see, countries like China, what does China have underground that they're utilizing massively to ensure that they produce a lot above the ground?
Goes back.
You see, so.
You know what I said? I'm sorry. I
wearing a suit. Come on.
I just had to say it.
I think it's going to come back to us as African countries developing ourselves first, right? And being able to create mass employment for ourselves, being able to manufacture our own resources, have a secondary sector by ourselves. Each and every country in Africa should have that obligation. They should all be obligated to do such. Because once we do that, we increase our GDP with more money available and we focus on development. That means we can invest more in our military to make it stronger. So by the time we choose to align and become one, even if they choose to come, we can stand for them.
But that's why I say the diplomatic approach that President Cyril Ramaphosa has is important, because we have the army, but we are not sitting at that table where we can even rally alliances with other members of that Security Council to say, hey man, this is what we are deciding to do. Nani, you are also forced under this one global order, but how about we just all do our own thing? Okanye, if we're fighting, fight with us. Or if this is what we're doing, how about you join and pursue it, abound with ideas?
I think furthermore, when that happens, right, when African countries all try to make sure we have what the things that we're supposed to have, I really wonder what is the West doing when they see us doing that. For example, now we speaking about Trump, right, and the things that Trump is saying. I know that the new South African ambassador or American ambassador to South Africa was coming out saying remarks like South Africa basically had a whole bunch of list of demands for us to be quote unquote non-aligned, which really means to align with them. So is that threat not there? Is that imperialist control not so strong that each country just could not unite because they all are serving a certain master, even if it's a different master?
Can I also add to that? Right, you spoke about BRICS earlier, and he said BRICS is something that we shouldn't be proud of, right? So like with the question that Uzen just asked, my train of thought is escaping me now. I'm trying to get back to it. Please help with what you just said.
I was thinking about Bricks Mercado now because
Okay.
you said Bricks.
We okay. So we are owing China money, right? We are owing Russia money, and we are owing all of these other countries money, right? There's this idea to build a solid, and militant army for Africa or even South Africa, right? What is the European counterpart going to do when they realize we're doing this? First, we owe them money. Where do we begin building this army when we don't even have the capacity to do that? Because again, we are reliant on that a country. We are reliant on the same European countries to even realize the ambition that we have. Are they going to just say, okay, we like what Africa is doing? They are claiming independence. They need money
They're like,
to buy guns.
Oh, those
Russia
those
is like,
Africans
we
want to
need-
take control of the mines.
Yeah,
oh,
they're like,
yes.
they want that. And Russia is like, they need, they need guns. They need us to supply them with guns so that they can build their strong army and they won't be, reliant on us. And they'll stop trading with us, or they'll prioritize African countries. So what do we have to gain? They're no longer our friend. They no longer care about our interests.
But do they care about ours?
No, they don't.
But do we afford not to care about theirs?
That's a good question. Currently,
Great question.
that's a great question. In fact, really. I never thought of that. That's really a great question. hey, that's a great question.
This is the best of us.
That's a great question. But I do believe, whether we like it or not, right, there are resources that we are still getting from outside our continent, right? And even if we would claim independence as Africa and become one, we will still need those resources.
Absolutely.
But it's just a matter of now changing the negotiation structure to be in a point of strength, one. Two, to also be able to ensure that we build local economies first, instead of just supplying everything and then we're still stuck in poverty. What is the point of saying, Bana, you are there for your people if your people are going to continue to suffer, continue to be hungry, continue to stay unemployed and not be able to do certain things? And even these state resources are not enough to help those people. We have that problem in Africa. And if we want massive reform, if we want rule change, it's not something we can even do in 5 years, even 10. Minimum years would be like about 30 years for us to fully do it and transition to this, right? I think, like you said, having people like Ramaphosa, but not Ramaphosa, but like people like him, right? Intellectuals who are going to be able to sit on the table and, be able to negotiate and show the significance of this, because there's no point of selling all our resources if our people are going to continue to suffer, continue to be hungry, regardless of what we get. That means, Bana, we have a lot to lose compared to what we're giving. And we have to develop in ourselves. China is selfish. US is selfish. Russia is selfish. So why, when African economies want to be selfish, it's a problem? That is a problem. And like I said before, it is a system. It's systematic, right? People have, because of the incentives they received, they are now greedy, and because now they are greedy, they have used rules to ensure they continue to do this. And because of that, now their whole behavior has changed. And because of the change of the behavior, there is now feedback loops of this system continuously continuing to oppress Africa while they continue to benefit. And the power structures themselves have completely shifted to be that. So now it's a system that continues to compound
But
itself
have they shifted?
automatically.
Have they shifted? Have the power structures actually shifted?
Yeah, compared to look into the prices of Orlando, how much we sell things and how much we get them back. They have shifted big time. And with the currency, volatility, the volatility that's going on currently,
I see with
you get to
petrol.
see how it's
see with
affecting
petrol.
us more than
Until
anyone else.
A year later, it's up again because, like I said, we are not at the decision-making tables, guys. So if our country is a dog and I'm sitting here eating food, if this dog is my favorite dog, I'm going to give the dog a big piece of whatever I'm eating here because, okay, I love this dog. But I just want to end off with something from the Game of Thrones. I don't know if you've watched it.
I love Game of Thrones. I am
Are
Game of
you
Thrones.
wait? Are you actually serious? Sometimes I never know.
No, I'm no. Like I love Game
Your
of
favorite
Thrones.
character, quickly.
My favorite character in Game of Thrones is no character.
I knew it.
Majority
You
of
were
them.
so
child.
serious. I knew it.
I was
you
gonna
never
no,
know,
listen.
Zan.
No, literally,
You just
I was
never
I was
know.
gonna say Joffrey, but that would be a bit too much. Jon Snow is too obvious, of course, because it's Jon Snow. Everyone loves Jon Snow.
character,
I love Tyrion. Okay, Tyrion mentally, just the way he thinks. Like, come on, Tyrion Lannister, let's go.
Okay.
Short guy.
Okay, yeah, I think you know it. And there's a quote there from Game of Thrones, right? And it speaks to the idea of power and even maybe the illusion of power. So
Who was this
there's-
by Cersei? Cersei Lannister.
Yeah,
Or was it a
that was
dad?
a demonstration
Tywin
of
Lannister.
No, it was okay.
I
it
watched
was the
it.
sister.
Okay.
It was the
Cersei
sister,
Lannister.
yes.
Cersei, yeah.
I know her name. I watched the show.
Right? And it speaks to the illusion of power, right? Who has power, right? And I'll make an example out of the three of us. One is a king, one is a swordsman, and
the
another
king.
is a businessman. Who has power here? He sets the rules. What he says goes. You are the swordsman. You have the power of life and death. You can literally kill this guy and you can kill me and you would be the guy. And I'm here. I've got the money, right? I'm the businessman. You know, king needs money to run his affairs. Who has power?
I think it's a businessman.
Yeah, but what if he doesn't care about money and his values are...
Thing is, the businessman can pay me to tell him what to do, right?
Or pay him
Or
to
I
take
can
me
kill
out.
you. Similar to what happened to Gugu Joffrey where he was killed.
Yeah, but Joffrey was wilding.
Yeah, but he was the king and he had the power.
Great question, isn't it?
Yeah, but
It's not even that deep, guys.
But-
It's whoever we believe has the power. If we
I think
believe
it's
it's the king,
perception.
It's all perception.
yeah.
There we
If
go.
we believe it's the
Answer.
king, you know what's a god to a non-believer? I think Kanye West said that.
No church in the wild.
That wasn't Kanye West. Don't ruin it
No
for
church
me.
in the
What's
wild is a
king to
song.
the-
Kanye West and Jay Z on a song together.
Okay,
Yeah.
sorry. I thought
Who
it
doesn't
was
know
a man.
something now?
Yeah, but what's a god to a non-believer? Perception.
Perception. But also, the last question I would like to ask before I let you go is, yeah, okay, actually, last two questions. The last one is, where can people find your book? But the one before that is, I want to know, given what we are saying about the complexities it is for us to stand independent as a people, do you blame those in society, that black person you know that prioritizes the well-being of their family and of themselves more than the upliftment of the economy? And more than the principles and values that would make us all progress together as a people? Do you blame that privileged, person living in the suburbs, only trying to put their kid in private school,
Yes.
trying to get as much money for their family to, further that family name more than the South African agenda?
The way you worded that question, you worded it so beautifully and diplomatically that he can't say I blame him. But yeah, that's like you asking,
some
do you blame,
partiality.
do you,
I
do
know
you
what you
blame
are.
a snitch during apartheid because this man was just
That is
trying
so
to look
drastic
out.
to make it about
I'm just
apartheid.
saying, but like
But do we though? Okay.
we don't, we don't.
The question comes back to how they get the money. How do they progress the family name? Right? That's the question. And if ever, let's say they do it through corruption and it's bad initiatives, then yeah, sure, I do blame them, right? But if ever they prioritize themselves, sure, they should prioritize themselves, put themselves first. But I do blame them for not prioritizing other people after they have taken care of themselves.
But then now, this man is well off, right? This man's kids are well off. This man has multiple businesses. His kids are going to inherit these businesses.
He's wearing a suit every day.
This man, his kids understand the value of things. They're humble people. It's not like his family are bad people. They're genuinely good people. They just exist within a neighborhood, within a market, that there's not too many of them. There's only very few people like that. And maybe some of his funds aren't necessarily that, clean. Do you still blame that particular person? Because the other route could have been to think more about the masses. But if he did that, not only would he not be able to affect change for the masses, but also more importantly, wouldn't be able to see comfort for his family.
I feel like you've answered this question you're asking. I please ask me the question.
I know what you,
know-
think.
Oh,
That's the thing about it. I know what you think.
freedom fight.
You probably think he's
But
terrible
this
for
is
that.
this is a good question because there was a
It's a question for me, guys, that is
Yeah.
about agenda.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
all
yeah.
about agenda.
And I want to speak to that. It's a very beautiful question because a lot of the times
you,
we
make
want
me
people
blush.
to fight struggles that aren't theirs, right? If we go back to Fees Must Fall, there were those students who were saying, "Hey guys, we are not going to protest with you. We are coming from poverty-stricken backgrounds, and we need to get this qualification. So I cannot afford to miss class." And some were saying, "Hey bro, that's your struggle. I need to make sure that I pass and get this degree so that I can feed my family back at home. And you are fighting for a good cause. I understand. I get it. But were they wrong to say, we don't want to be a part of this. We don't want to
Personally,
strike.
I don't
guys.
wanna
To
strike.
choice. Comes back to choice.
We don't want to strike, guys. So do it alone. Do it alone. We are not there. Are those people sellouts when you look back at the Fees Must Fall movement now and what it became and what it symbolized? Are we comfortable with saying that, no, man, Sepang was a sellout because he wasn't striking when other kids were
Komchi
striking?
Chipang is probably a sellout.
So are we right to even label them as that? Because that's the idea. It's like, you didn't fight for the struggle. How were you educated during apartheid? You're a sellout.
I think it comes back to benefits, right? If ever someone has no incentive to that, they don't have to choose it. And and plus, Amandi, what I love is we have democracy, so they have the right to choose whatever they choose to choose. They have a freedom of choice. So whatever they choose, we cannot give them a title by their sellout because there's no incentive for them in that. It's like you asking me, Bana, do I want to go buy food at ShopRite, whereas I can go buy at Woolworths, right? I will choose Woolworths because incentive-wise, I can go for Woolworths, right?
They don't pay us, sorry. Yeah. Yeah, but
So it comes back to incentives, right? If ever someone has nothing to gain from that, they have every right to choose not to choose it. And we cannot blame them for that because we have chosen a democratic state.
Zonga Peter, thank you so much. What a conversation. So rich in information, but also in dialogue and, matters that can divide opinion. But I think more than divide opinion, they spark engagement, which is very, very important because what is a people if we are not people that engage with each other, that reflect on each other and then are able to progress with each other? What a conversation. It's like 22 minutes to 12 p.m. is the time. Beyond the Grey is about to conclude. Is it? Yeah, conclude is the word, right?
comments.
Not comments. It's about to conclude, and then thereafter, the refuel team will be with you. Tepo, Nonki, and Truces Kobalana are already in the building. We say to you, good morning.